background to be slightly dangerous, and that is that genetic predisposition is not certainty, right? I'm a firm believer in epigenetics, and this idea that there's genomics plus environment, and that equals the cell phone, right? But we don't know how a lot of those things slide together. So I just started watching the research and just kind of held off and held off and held off. 23andMe was kind of my favorite for many reasons. One, I felt that serious, and I don't give my fangirl-ism lightly, so I'm pretty critical. I felt that the surveys, for me, were one of the most interesting parts of taking things that I've experienced and trying to loop that back somehow research-wise to my data. And that impressed me. Now, there are other companies that try that, but they seem to have slightly different focal points, right? Navigenics has a different kind of spiel, Decode has a different spiel. Q-Trait, which is a fascinating one if you're not familiar with them, a completely different spiel. They want to do genetic dating. Just nuts.
That's freaking.
But freaking cool, yeah. So what about Q-Trait?
I asked if you guys could consider that.
I have a hard enough time matchmaking, from like the grocery store on Craigslist. I don't really start looking.
Somebody's Craigslist.
Q-Sexy,
That's way worse. That's a genetic cesspool.
I didn't say I have good taste. I just said I look at all the options. So one of the things that I waited for was to see some kind of information on the data ramping up, right?
The Q-Trait website is pretty intense. Hell yeah.
Oh!
Everybody, okay, two really interesting things here. Women run all the DTC genomics companies. Yeah. Gender studies minor, so I'm paying attention to this because I'm like, holy crap, how did it, woman behind the throne thing kind of thing.
Isn't it always though? Isn't it always?
Yeah, I'm gonna stop talking now before I get myself immortal, but I waited for the information that I thought would be statistically relevant, and I realized that the biggest challenges that all of these companies has, as I was looking at it as an analyst and then as social media, whatever, and blogger, blah, 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 was that they need more data and they need more people. And what do I know how to do? I know how to work data, massage data, and I know how to get people together. So then I started watching and waiting for, when is somebody going to do something that lets an individual patient, because patient advocacy, if you've heard any of my stuff, is exactly what is most important to me at all levels, and coming at this from an individual perspective that we can then vaccinate exponentially, right? When is one of these companies going to let me in? Me. And when are they going to let me recruit other people? And I didn't even know that this was in the works. I got like the Silicon Valley intro to people back and forth. And I talked to the CEOs of both of these companies. I've been to Capitol Hill hearings on DTC genomics. I've been reading the papers for a year and a half. And when I heard about Research Revolution, I was like, okay, here's a chance to see if patients doing anything, not necessarily running it, but just talking to 5 or 10 people, if I can get 10 more people to become engaged with some portion of their health data, in this case, their DTC genomic data, whether it's 6,500 SNPs or whatever, and to take surveys, because that's an activation event that gets me further engaged. For me, 1,000 patients per 10 conditions, I have no idea if we can do it. If I can get 10 people to sign up for one of those conditions, then I've succeeded. Because those 10 people, chances are they're going to get one other person right. It's the power of 10 in sales. So that was my initial kind of thought getting involved, and my feeling that, this is going to sound really crass, but those 10 conditions are not very personally relevant to me. But there's one that it absolutely is. And if you look at my organized wisdom and polar wisdom activity, it's depression advocacy and bipolar depression research, because that's affected both sides of my family, me personally, and living through depression is extremely stigmatized at this point. So being able to talk about that, not just from a qualitative perspective, but getting people engaged in a model that I hope to replicate for depression research is absolutely something I'm willing to put time, energy, and spit towards. So lots of spit and viscous, viscous spit. If you see the picture of me, I did a posters post on me spitting. It was like 6 inches of saliva. It's really great.
This
don't
is
do
the
it before
part
eating.
of the pitch, by the way.
Exactly. I'm completely on. Look at me. I'm wearing Ash's jacket. I have no college or social basis. But no, seriously, for me, the power is if this model can be proven, then more foundations can be brought on, and I have a chance to bring on a foundation that's personally relevant to me. It's a pretty selfish approach. But at this point, it's the only one I've seen that gives me any kind of access to a walled garden that's been completely out of reach of a consumer with no higher education. Right? Well, I have an undergrad degree in the liberal arts, but I'm not a scientist, I'm not a geneticist, I'm not from Stanford or MIT. So, you know,
or USC.
Or USC, or any of these wonderful institutions you people went to, right? I consider community college. So, you know, I almost went with Kaplan. No, in all seriousness, it was giving me access. And that's the point that I look for, because once I get in, I can do this. Right? And I can get 5 or 10 other people involved. And even for me, I live in a $500 a month apartment in the Hague, out of 2 suitcases. $99, yeah, I can spring that. I can do that. My cousin can do that, my mom can do that, my sister can do that. $400, when it was $1,000, I just laughed and looked longingly at all the wonderful healthcare bloggers who were getting these kids for free. But at the same time...
You're getting kids for free?
That's a dirty secret. And it wasn't just 23andMe. There were multiple test availabilities for journalists. So, don't you write for Wired? Like,
Yeah, no, I never got offered one, but I couldn't take one.
well, now you can pay $99.
No, but like, yeah,
to
ethically
do
you
the right
can't. You're not supposed to if you're a journalist, like take anything for free.
So,
And then,
disclaimer.
This doesn't take journalists
Here's
and
another
bloggers.
Yeah, well, and here are 2 more important disclaimers. And right now I'm not speaking for 23andMe, I'm speaking for me, getting involved with the program. But there are 2 things to think about here. I was offered a kit for free, and I slipped a $99 check into the foot video thing. Did you find that? Okay. So I'm paying for my kit, because I went home and I was really pumped to have my kit, and I was like, this means I'm shopping at, like, you know, a discount food store in the Hague for the next 3 weeks, but I have to pay for this.
Parks Farmers Market's good.
If I'm thank you. If I'm trying to talk to people about doing this, then I have to actually do it, the whole process, the exact same way everybody else does. So I'm doing that. But there are some things that I might work with 23andMe on later, which as a genetics geek, I'm not going to lie, that's like a dream come true, and I would absolutely do it. As I would with any company that I think is, again, giving individual patients access and giving patient advocates access to try to form communities. Am I scared about this? Absolutely. This is putting myself out on a huge limb. 1,000 patients for a study is a huge freaking number, and you can't offer it to them for free. Like, you just can't bring the cost down. So I have to go to my friends now, and I hate fundraising. I used to do it as a biz dev person. It's not something I want to go back to. Nightmare, PTSD. But will I go to people I know and ask them to pay $99 and do one of these conditions? Yeah, I will. Why? If you were in the talk this morning, right? It's a piece of data that I own, right? That I own, and they're helping me explore. So absolutely, I want to prove the business model for this. And I will, disclaimer, if I'm accepted to the Personal Genome Project, I'll make all of my data open source, and I plan to blog and tweet this entire process, so it's less intimidating. Yeah, obviously, I'm passionate about it.
I didn't quite get that.
Sometimes it comes out very, very monotone and very
so British, so uptight, stiff upper lip, Can't tell. So
I'm actually an introvert. Speaking of the personality test, on Myers-Briggs, I'm INTJ.
No, you're not. You're an ENFJ.
No. I'm INTJ, and I always test that way. I became excruciatingly extroverted after a car accident because I realized I needed that to get anything done. So I am an introvert who is
I don't believe you,
overcompensating.
So actually, have you guys looked into the personal genomics project that headed by George Church? They're recruiting patients too, right?
Yeah, I mean, know about it. I don't know what to say about it. It's a really interesting project. George Church is on our SAD, so we know George quite well. It's great. It's kind of different, I feel.
You mean the technology is different?
It's a very, it's a really interesting goal, and it's just something that we keep track of. But